I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be, it's complicated and it's my fault. Got an email here from a viewer who started dating a gal, I guess after he had a breakup, and she had recently broken up with her ex. But after a few weeks, he got stuck in friend zone, and then she kind of went back to the ex, and so now he's just kind of stuck in friend zone. He wants to know what to do to get out of it. But before we get into it, I got a good quote I'd like to share with you. And it says, one of the hardest things to do in life is to stand up for yourself in a society that places such a huge emphasis on conformity, trying not to offend others, being politically correct, going along to get along, and basically sacrificing who you are in order to be accepted by those who you deem important. Once our identity becomes associated with a lover, friend, business, career, social status, etc., it becomes difficult to let go of those attachments to embrace who you truly are. Fear of loss is often so overwhelming that most people will sacrifice their happiness, dreams, and desires in order to gain the acceptance of others, which is usually fleeting and fickle anyways. You'll never be truly happy unless you are living a life of your own choosing and design, a life that is free from the need to gain the approval or acceptance of others. When you can find fulfillment, happiness, and satisfaction in your own work and efforts, the acceptance or approval of others becomes irrelevant and unnecessary. So along those lines, let's go ahead and get into this guy's email, because I do a lot of phone sessions with guys that are in these kinds of situations here where they've got themselves into a situation and they've just been kind of going along with things because they're afraid if they stand up for themselves that the woman that they're seeking the love or the approval of, that she's going to take off and never want anything to do with him again. And that's definitely a real possibility. However, they end up keeping themselves kind of like in a living hell because like they can't really move forward. They wake up in the morning, they think about the girl. They're thinking about her all day. They're thinking about her at work. So it affects their ability to focus on their job and their mission and their purpose in life. Plus they get home at night and they're just stewing about it. And then it's not going anywhere. And then they start sending emails or texts or phone calls trying to move things along. And she just kind of reiterates what she had told them previously. And then of course they're trying not to upset her, so they just sit there and they repress all or suppress their own desires or needs and their wants because they figure if they express what they really want that they're going to lose this person. And it's just absolute emotional torture, and I did that a lot in my 20s, and it's like you finally get to a place where you've been through these situations enough times to where you're just like, fuck it. Just like the video that I talked about yesterday with an ex-girlfriend of mine. I got to that place with her. We were bouncing back and forth between dating, being exclusive, and then her sticking me back in friend zone. And I would stand up for myself and say, I'm not going to go along with this. And that's what eventually pushed things over the edge to where I just got to the place where I was willing to, whatever happens, going to happen. Either I'm going to get her or this thing's going to dissolve and I'm going to finally be able to move on and attract somebody who is exactly what it is that I want and deserve. So let's get into this guy's email. He says, hey coach, I just got to say I really greatly enjoy the videos you produce. I haven't quite got to finish viewing them all yet, but maybe you have covered this issue and I'm having and can pass on a link that covers it. He says, here's the deal. I ran into this girl that I thought was very beautiful, and I seem to be pretty lucky in attracting beautiful gals. My ex and I had split up about 5 months ago, and I split because she never had time or was never able to communicate with me. I was a nice guy that went out of his way and worked for a year and a half so as I learned to move on, and I met this young, beautiful woman who split from her baby daddy around the same time. That's kind of tough because not only does she have a child with this guy, but she obviously had quite a bit of time with him, and now you're kind of new to the situation, or you're at least new in her life, and so you really haven't had any time to develop any kind of emotional bond with her. You know, especially the father of her child, that's a tough bond to overcome. So your game's got to be tight, and if it's not, if you start, because just kind of reading between the lines here, what you said about your ex, that tells me that basically the reason he broke up there is because they weren't spending a lot of time together, and she was never able to communicate with him. She never had time for you. Well, the reason a woman doesn't have time for you is because her attraction level is low. But if her attraction level is high, she's going to be pretty much blowing your phone up all the time and wanting to spend time with you. And so that tells me that you were over pursuing in that last relationship. And so this obviously is a pattern that happens from relationship to relationship to relationship. And if you don't get it straight with this particular girl, you're going to be faced with the same situation with the next girl that comes around. And if I was to be talking to all of your ex-girlfriends, it pretty much would be the same reasons that this pretty much is a pattern of what's always happened in your relationships. And it's usually due to over-pursuit, being too nice, not standing up for yourself. And even, as you've mentioned here, you've been too nice and you know that you're being too nice. And so the key is to grow a set of balls, basically, and learn to start standing up for yourself early on. And when a woman starts pushing you around, to stand up and say, hey, I don't like the way you're treating me, or this is not cool, and be willing to walk away if she's not going to give you what it is or treat you the way you want to be treated. Because women will bluff to test your strength. If they think or they sense that there is weakness, I wrote about this extensively in my book. If they sense weakness, they can't help it because they want to know that you're going to be more of a man than they are. They want to know that you'll stand up for yourself. It's part of them getting to the point where they can trust your masculine core. Because if you won't stand up for yourself, if there's ever a time when she's in any kind of, or the two of you are in any kind of physical danger, and she doesn't trust your masculine core, her natural instinctive fear is that you're going to be like, hey, see you later, and then you're going to take off and leave her there to fend for herself. And so when that happens, when a woman senses weakness in that case, that she's going to start to push you away. And the average guy that doesn't know any better starts to pursue because he's watched too many movies and TV shows that say you got to seek a woman's approval, you got to chase her and basically act like a stalker. And of course, after a couple of months or a couple of years of this, she'll throw in the towel and go, wow, what an idiot I was for not realizing what a great guy you were. Let me go ahead and get into a relationship with you. He says, my ex and her dated, or my ex and him. So in other words, his ex-girlfriend actually dated, I guess, this girl's current, or her current ex. So he says, so I already had a history of not liking the guy. He says, so I met this girl, and we started to hang out, and we were getting close, and he was starting to treat her well and be the nice guy. I got put in the friend zone. So nice guys always finish last, and that's why. Because you're not standing up for yourself. You're not acting like a man. You're basically acting like a wussy. In essence, you're acting like a woman. And a woman wants a guy that acts like a man, who's in his masculine, not a guy who acts more feminine than he does masculine. He says, but I didn't allow it, and I kept being nice and sweet. Our communication is great. Listen to what he says here. He says, our communication is great, attraction is great, we laugh and just enjoy each other's company. That's your perception. In other words, you're projecting what you think onto her. But if your attraction was really that great, she wouldn't be putting you in friend zone. And you're ignoring that. You're ignoring the reality of what's really going on in the relationship, and that's part of you trying to absolve yourself from any kind of guilt or blame for the fact that you've gotten stuck in friend zone, which the same thing is happening with this girl that happened with your ex-girlfriend. And it's a pattern, and it's all due to your behavior of how you're showing up when you're dating, when you're with the woman you're dating. He says, after the third time of doing sweet things, it scared her and pushed her back into seeing the ex again. You probably focused on relationships, dating, trying to nail her down to a commitment. She's probably talking about the ex-boyfriend because obviously it's relatively new. Plus, it's the guy she had a kid with. And if you're like most guys, that makes you feel insecure, and so you feel like you got to do more, you got to chase more, you got to pursue more, instead of acting like a guy who is a catch and who has options and maybe dating 2 or 3 other women. He says the whole time she's been honest with her feelings towards him and the other issue. What did I just say? So obviously she's talking about the ex, and it's making him feel insecure about it. And then he causes him to fall under the illusion of action and over pursue. And that just drives a woman right out of your life. He says, now I feel invested into this girl on an emotional and physical level. He says the guy treats her not so well, and she has feelings for him because of the history and the baby. Well, also, what's going on here is I had a client I was talking to today who was in the same situation. He, in essence, was like the sugar daddy, if you will, paying her bills and things of that nature, but he's not sleeping with her, and yet she's out hanging out with some other guy, and on her Facebook, she's showing that that other guy is the boyfriend, even though she's blowing all kinds of sunshine up this client's butt, but he's not sleeping with her anymore, and he's ignoring those things, and a lot of guys do this. So he says, on the same note, I started a date, and she seemed sad but understood. So it kind of bothered her, but not really. He says, we still hang out, and I'm still that nice guy. Usually that, listen to what he says, usually that approach hasn't been working out. You think? He says, now she seems to be getting closer and more emotionally attached to me as well, but she's not hooking up with you. He says she's not sleeping with him, but had once. He said, well, she's not sleeping with him now, but she was just recently. So in other words, this week she's not sleeping with him, but she's been sleeping with him recently. And mind you, she's not sleeping with you. He says, her and I have not slept together, but we just get closer every single time we do. Hang out, have fun, hook up. Hang out, have fun, hook up. Rinse, recycle, repeat. There's nothing in there about relationship, being exclusive, or any of that stuff. That comes after a woman forms an emotional bond with you. Hang out, have fun, hook up. And did I say hang out, have fun, hook up? Yeah. Keep it simple. You're focused on relationship and labels. You're not going to get anywhere with that or this nice guy behavior. He says, so I got myself stuck in the middle of the situation where I'm the other guy, but I don't want to give up on her because the connection is extreme, but she's scared. It's not that she's scared, dude. It's that you're not acting like a man. You're acting like a wuss, and this ex-boyfriend is acting like a man. That's why she's hooking up with him and not you. When you're together, you got to make a move. You got to make the attempt to move things physically, ultimately to a successful conclusion in the bedroom. Otherwise, you're just a friend. You're just a gay male girlfriend that's going along with whatever it is that she says she wants in order to please her in hopes that she'll love you, and it will never fucking happen. And you're obviously starting to realize this just from the things you said here. He says, my question is, if he's the villain and I'm the superhero sweet guy that she seems to be craving a bit more every day, how can I get her to be mine and only mine? Simple. Hang out, have fun, and hook up. And stop worrying about the future and this other guy and having a relationship with her. He says, do I keep doing what I'm doing and give it the time till her heart realizes what her mind and body are saying? In other words, hey, Corey, should I keep pursuing her and acting like a stalker and being the gay male girlfriend in hopes that someday she'll move me out of friend zone? It won't happen, dude. You'll just frustrate yourself and give yourself an enormous case of blue balls. He says, or do I get some and distance myself, or do I run now? I'm having trouble just going away. Well, that's a big part of your problem. And even if I can't fully have her, I enjoy the time I do spend with her. Well, if you're okay with being the gay male girlfriend and not getting any pink taco, then keep doing what you're doing, dude. If you keep doing what you've always done, you'll continue to get what you've always got. He says, but eventually it will become painful if I can't win her heart. You don't have to prove anything to her, dude. The attraction was already handled, but your behavior is pushing her away. What's the best way to win her fully? The best thing you can do is nothing. When she calls you, make a date to hang out, have fun, and hook up. Stop worrying about this other guy. Just focus on hanging out, having fun, and hooking up. Let her come to you. Because remember, she unilaterally changed the terms of your relationship and stuck you in friend zone. But if you keep pursuing her, you're just confirming or continuing to reconfirm to her that putting you in friend zone was the best thing. You got to stand up for yourself and what you want and be willing to walk away when she's not willing to give you what you want. I will talk to you soon.